Hi everybody. So it's time for us to start doing introductions. Now people are joining the group as they get their email, which is about a day after they sign up for the Eat Like a Pioneer challenge. So I'm getting everything ready in the Facebook group. Now not everybody's going to be joining us in the Facebook group. Not everybody's on Facebook. Good for them. But I thought I would do my introduction. I have put up a post in the group under Unit 1 for you to list your introductions. I'm going to do mine as a video because I have that ability and I much rather talk than type. So here it goes. This is my introduction. The Eat Like a Pioneer challenge is something that's really near and dear to my heart. I started this journey, it didn't seem like I was on this journey for a long time, but I started this journey as a young mother with my first child. Now I have 2 teenagers now, so this was a little while ago, and I became very concerned as a young mother about what I was exposing my children to and what I was feeding them. And my journey in eating like a pioneer really started there. Now, it's not that there was never that inkling or that desire before, but that's where I really started giving it a concerted effort. And my first efforts were learning how to can. Now, a lot of people assume that I grew up doing these things, and I did not. I did not can as a child. My mother did make strawberry freezer jam, though, and it was really good. But canning just wasn't something that we did. And I had to learn from scratch. Now, when I was learning, this is back before the internet was useful. It was there, but it was very rudimentary. So I went to the library and I took out all the books I could on preservation and canning. And I would go to my local library and get Mother Earth News. And I don't know if you've ever read that magazine, but it was phenomenal. Now, back then, it wasn't as yuppie-ish. And there was really fantastic information. So that's how I learned how to can, was through books on preservation and Mother Earth News. And I started out with jams because it's a really rewarding way to learn how to can. Everybody loves it. It makes good gifts. So jams, pickles, and salsa, which is how most people start canning. It progressed. That next year, after my oldest was born, I started growing a garden. Now, gardening was something that we had done before. We had grown cucumbers and tomatoes and corn and all kinds of things. My mom, from time to time, had a garden, but it was never a really big deal. And so I grew a 12 by 20 foot plot garden, and a lot of the things that I planted did not grow. It was a learning curve, but I loved it. And I also had 4 fruit trees in the backyard. Now, I was urban homesteading at this point. I had actually turned off my power and was doing everything by hand without electricity, which was interesting. But we had a little garden and I started canning, and things progressed from there. I understood the importance of eating healthy and local and clean food back then. However, I was a young mother and we were living on very little for income at that point. And so we didn't get to do everything the way that we did later on. Now, as we fast forward, many aspects of life changed, and I found myself living in Edmonton, and my partner at that point was a chef, and he had done some basic butchery training while he was in school. And so I learned how to break down a lamb, and together we learned how to break down pigs. So we started ordering our meat by the side or by the whole animal and butchering it ourselves. Now, we owned a catering company at that point, so that really helped us save money for the company, but it also ended up being how we provided meat for our family. When I was pregnant with my daughter, my 6-year-old, I started growing a garden again. And now this was in Edmonton, in the city, and we were living in a townhouse. So there wasn't really a yard. It was all cement. So while I was pregnant, built these raised bed planter boxes. And I had the most phenomenal garden. The mailman used to comment whenever he came in that it was just so impressive how big a tomato plant can get. And we had zucchini and all kinds of things, and it was fantastic. 2 years later, I was teaching business in Calgary and living in Strathmore, which is a small town just outside of Calgary because we didn't really want to live in the city. And because we weren't in the city anymore, there were things that we could do. So we really took urban homesteading to a new level there. And we were raising quail for eggs, rabbits for meat, and a garden. And again, when I was pregnant, actually, the day that I had my youngest child, I decided to build a greenhouse. And I'm pretty sure that's why I had my youngest on that day. But I got it done. It was built during the day, and I mowed the lawn also. And we started fermenting that year. We fermented veggies and fruits. We made fermented ketchup. So our canning efforts had progressed since then to the point where I would do most of our fruit, peaches and pears and all kinds of things that way. However, in terms of veggies, it was still pickles or ferments. I had not started pressure canning at that point. And, but that was actually the year that I started pressure canning vegetables. In moving from Calgary to the farm, which was a really big deal for us, and it had been a goal of ours for many, many years to start farming so that we could have a dairy cow and we could grow all of our own food. The year before moving to the farm, I was a single mom with 4 kids, and I decided that I would make a concerted effort to purchase organic and local food. Now, I had a great job, and I could afford to do that. And so, again, we continued to buy whole hogs and cut them up ourselves, and whole lambs. And we would buy veggies in bulk, and I would can them. And it was fantastic. But we really wanted to go that next level, and so we started a farm. Starting the farm was an absolutely amazing experience. We got to purchase our first Jersey cow and learn how to make cheese, and grew 2 years worth of vegetables and canned them and put them up for winter. It was an absolutely phenomenal experience. However, it was the skills and mentality that I had learned prior to that, for the 10 years prior to that, that prepared me for the rural homesteading experience and to really take our eating to not only a local organic place, but a seasonal place. So at this point in time, we eat what we produce. And it's not that we never go to the grocery store. Sometimes we do. And there's certain things that I can't produce here, like certain spices and things that we like as treats. We like oranges. We don't eat a lot of oranges. When I get cases of oranges, I'll can them. But we still enjoy some treats like that. However, most of what we consume now is vegetables that we produce on our farm. We forage for a lot of our fruit now. Fruit was the hardest one to localize for us because we really like bananas and we really like cherries. So localizing our fruits took a little while, and it took some adjustment. So I would say about 90% of our fruit is local now. There are local apple trees that we pick from. Raspberries are plentiful where we live. Blueberries are plentiful. Saskatoon berries are very plentiful here. Oh, and they're my favorite. And there's also local cherries that you can get in and around Alberta and specifically Edmonton. And so we've learned to barter for cherries also. This year we picked huckleberries. It took a little bit of a drive, but they're in Alberta, so we went and picked those too. The pieces that we are not yet obtaining from within our region are pears. Now, it's not that we can't, it's just that the pears that grow in Alberta are kind of sour, and I really love sweet pears. So we order our pears from an orchard in British Columbia by the case, and then I can 2 years worth of pears at a time, and then we only have to do that every second year. The wheat that we use for bread, we mill at home to make flour, and that's grown by a lovely farmer in our community. And what else? Our eggs come from our farm. Our meats are either wild harvested meats, which includes deer and moose. Hopefully soon it'll include an elk. And then we go fishing for our fish. We raise cattle and pigs, rabbits, chickens, sheep, goats for our meat and our milk. This food that we produce and that we harvest wild is enough for our family for the entire year. And in fact, last year I canned enough for 2 years. We've had some changes within our family structure, and so the food that I canned would have been the right amount if my teens were living here. But being that they're not, it ended up being enough for 2 years. So I'm still eating food from 2 seasons ago at this point, and it's all still fine. The skills that are required to eat this way and to live this way are actually not complicated. They're not difficult, but it does take a little bit of confidence in your abilities and the processes that it takes to put up food. It also takes a bit of sacrifice. Eating seasonally is not what most people are used to. It is the most natural diet for a human to eat seasonally. We shouldn't be eating bananas year round, and up here we shouldn't be eating bananas at all, although they're delicious and they're a great treat. For people who are not living on a farm, though, it is reasonable to have a goal to localize a portion of your diet. The easiest ones to tackle first, and what we tackled first, was vegetables and meats. All the meats that you could want to produce or consume are produced in Alberta. There's no reason to be getting anything from outside the province, and 90% of what you could want to eat is produced close to where you live, with the exception of fish and seafood, which is a great sustainable option most of the time, and I love seafood. So it's reasonable to figure out other options for that. Despite the fact that you can eat very locally, that doesn't mean that, given everybody's situation, that you have to produce it yourself. There are wonderful producers in Alberta that you can connect with to feed your family and to make sure that your nutritional needs are met, and that everything that you could want to be eating, you will have access to. But there's a change in mentality around purchasing your food when you are focused on eating like a pioneer. The relationship behind that food becomes much more important. It's not the same as going to a grocery store and simply buying a few packages of pork and a bag of potatoes. There are people skills and commitments involved in eating like a pioneer when you are purchasing from other farms. So we're going to actually talk about that in the program too. How do you be a great member of your local food shed? If you can't produce it yourself and you really do want to eat locally and seasonally, what are some of the foundational understandings that you need to have about being a farmer in the first place and being a local eater that supports local farms? Okay, so I've done a bit of the backstory in my introduction of how the heck did we come to be here. I guess a quick personal introduction. We live an hour and a half north of Edmonton, pretty close to Athabasca. However, I grew up in Manitoba in the Red River Valley. I now live in the Tawatna Valley. I have 4 children who range in age from 4 to 15. And I run a farm. I run the Reskilled Life Folk School also, and then a business where I create herbal creations of all sorts, leatherwork, and different crafts and jewelry that are all related to the place that I live in one way or another. So my businesses are Fair Share Farms, which is on a hiatus this year as I'm setting up infrastructure on our new off-grid homestead, and Reskilled Life, and 2 Roots. My background is not in agriculture. It is not in homesteading, although I've been studying and preparing for that for a long time. My background is in international relations, which with a focus on environment and business, which surprisingly is actually really related to what I'm doing right now. A lot of what I studied was based on food systems, natural resource-based economies, and environment, which is all related to homesteading and farming. I taught business for 5 years in Calgary and was a business coach for a while. I absolutely adore the process of starting businesses and entrepreneurship. I still support farms with their websites and marketing and some business support, but that's a really minimal part of my life right now. I take on 1, maybe 2 farms a year to support through that. I am Métis on my father's side, so I am fortunate to have harvesting rights year-round, which makes providing for my family just a little bit easier. And German and Scottish and Irish on my mother's side, so a little bit of a mutt. What else? Why am I embarking on this challenge? I think that helping people learn how to engage with their food and food production in a way that heals the land is one of the most important things that I could do. Beyond teaching traditional skills and helping people reconnect with culture through skills, I think that if I can support in any way the relocalization of our food system, that will be a blessing to me. There are so many atrocities in our industrialized food system that are really hard for me to contribute to. And I know a lot of people see that, and a lot of people want cleaner food, and they want more ethical food, and they want local food. They want food that they can feel really good about feeding their families. And so this program is near and dear to my heart for that reason. offering this program for free is doing a couple things for me. First, it's allowing me to get these skills out to as many people as possible in this first season. I've developed tools, spreadsheets, calculators, all kinds of things that actually help me plan for my food for the year in a really effective and organized way. I would love for you to play around with those tools and offer feedback this year. Now, I've been using them for a few years, and I know they work quite well for me. However, my mind works in a very specific way, and I'd love to see what you think of these tools also. So that's another reason that it's a hidden motive for me, is that you can test out some of those tools that I've developed. The last reason is I am really excited to build a community of people who have the mentality that we should eat locally, we should eat seasonally, and we should eat ethically. And so for every one of you that are participating in this program, you are becoming a part of that community, which is slightly selfish because I want that community. It is not often that I get to meet people who live this way. It's becoming more and more common that I meet people who live this way because of putting on things like this program. And so I welcome you to this community, and I hope that it is enriching to you and the journey that your family is on to eat more like a pioneer, to eat ethically, and to eat locally. I am going to have so many more opportunities to talk to you and to share little tidbits about our life and how we do things and how we eat. So I'm going to cut it off because we've hit the 20-minute mark. And I've probably lost a whole bunch of you as this has been a long introduction. I'm really excited to get to know all of you, and for anybody who's close to Edmonton, to have you out to the homestead throughout the year for you to experience certain parts of how we eat like pioneers. I am excited to release the first videos that are already recorded and uploaded onto YouTube, and to share some of the tools with you that I've mentioned today. All right, well, we've got a few weeks before the program officially starts, but you will see a few little pieces here and there as we get closer and closer to February 1st. There is still time for people to sign up, so if you know people who this might be interesting to, do go ahead and share. There is unlimited space in this program because it's online, and we will only increase the richness of the community by having more people participate. All right, well, it's late. The girls are sleeping, so I'm going to say goodnight to you, and we will talk to you again soon.